Thanks so much for coming tonight. I love having a full house. It's wonderful. Before we begin, I want to mention a couple of our other upcoming events, because we are busy this week. Tomorrow night, we'll host Warren Haddock with his Archie Driscoll Mystery Series. Then on Wednesday, Tim Diebel will be here with his book, Savoring Awe. Then we've got Steve Grove on Thursday, and we've got Open Mic Poetry Night. If you know anybody that loves to read, write, or listen to poetry, tell them to come to our free event. We do it quarterly, and it is always fun. And this one is going to be what they call the Poetry Potluck, and everybody's bringing their own poems. So that starts at 7 o'clock. Also, you might have received our holiday calendar or a catalog in the mail, and if you didn't, we've got extra copies, so pick one up because every book in there is 10% off. So that's another great way to do holiday shopping. Now, for the program. Driven by the enduring Persian proverb, drop by drop, a river is made, it traces Fazal's journey from a refugee camp to belonging in America. The book culminates in a father's final, definitive act of generational love, securing for his children, especially his daughter, the priceless American gift of education, freedom, and a voice of her own. The core emotional challenge is the complex maze of the U.S. healthcare system for children with special needs. Fazal Moneer Adil is a writer, community leader, and entrepreneur based right here in Des Moines, Iowa. His life has been an odyssey across borders in search of dreams and belonging. Born in a refugee camp in Pakistan, he later worked in Dubai before returning to Afghanistan to serve as an interpreter for U.S. special operatives. After the fall of the Afghan government in 2021, Fazal resettled with his family here in Iowa. Since then, he has dedicated his professional life to helping other refugees. Mayan, there's plenty.
Betty, we have some place here.
In roles such as family health navigator, wellness case manager, and employment navigator in human services. He guides families through the complexities of resettlement, healthcare, and education. He also serves on the board of the Iowa Afghan Community and Cultural Organization, continuing his mission of advocacy and service. Welcome, Fazal.
Thanks so much, Jen, for that introduction. I don't work or see myself to be worth that much long introductory person. But thank you so much, and thank you for providing the platform of this blessed place for opportunity and growth. Thanks so much. And thank you all for coming here. There are plenty people here who have directly touched my life, whether that was volunteer work or involvement with all the maze of healthcare system of the United States, refugee resettlement process, or I always say Barb is my landlord and then a friend. And she said, don't introduce me like that because, because she never asked when to pay my rent. And that's where the landlord name comes before everything else, because she's very flexible. She's very helpful to me and my family and my kids, and they call her grandma. As I said, like, they call everyone grandma, and sometimes they get confused, like, who is our actual grandma? Joyce is also there, so she's a grandma as well. But I tell them, like, whoever are the good elder people and coming to help us, those are our people whom we can call with those names. And thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, everyone, for coming here. I'm glad and I'm blessed. Thanks so much. Hugh, please come here. Hugh is also a fatherly figure in my life. Thanks so much for standing with me and believing in me. Would you guys like some snacks? Or thank you. Yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about the book, initially I had written something that was like maybe 2-3 pages, but that kind of gave an idea what I was doing, and I shared it with one of my friends. Since English is my, I think, 5th or 4th language, I don't know, I wouldn't have done this without the help of my friends. And I pretty much used a lot of resources to be able to complete the book, and also thank you in that process. So when I shared that draft with a friend, she helped me make a workflow and kind of awaken my senses of all of my senses, my feelings, how I felt at that moment, how I saw things at that moment, how I smelled things at that moment. And there was like a lot of involvement when I waken up one of my senses, like the sense of smelling. Then I also focused on, okay, this moment also something happened that I heard. And then that's how the book grew from 3-4 pages into chapters, and then into many chapters, and to 50 years of history that was long started before my birth. I'm kind of in the middle, born in the middle, and then till 2021, and honestly till today. I first named the book as The Odyssey of American Dreams. I searched what could be a good word in my English that I could understand, which is not very cliche like journey. Use journey in our daily lives, but then I found that odyssey is a word that is a combination of different journeys towards a destination. And I thought, like, yes, that's a good word, Odyssey of American Dreams, because when I was 9 or 10 or whatever years old, I used to think of living somewhere where there is freedom valued, where there is humanity valued, where there is education of standards that you can use and utilize in your life, where other people can benefit from your education. And I found out that there could be few places, and I was told that I don't belong to the place where I lived because of my thoughts about life and how I perceived life. My friends would tell me, you don't belong here. You should either go to the United States, Australia, UK, or those very developed countries. And then 9/11 happened, and then that was kind of an introduction between me and the United States. And I fall in love with learning English. And then I pursued learning English, and until now I'm here. So it was kind of my dream to come to the United States. I know you might feel like many of who have born here and live here, like we are not a great country. No, you are. I think there is just one thing, that the realization how grateful we should be and how blessed we are to be in a country like this. People, I mean, it's very much easier here to press a button and the coffee is ready. But in some countries, people are striving to just have 30 minutes of electric power or light in just 24 hours, or maybe in a week. And people are drinking water from wells which are not healthy, which are not clean. And there are a lot of diseases that are coming out of that kind of situation. So yes, my point was, like, we should be blessed in all of our life situation, but especially to live in a country like this. There are a lot of opportunities, especially for someone like me. Because if I'm comparing my 20 years life back with the life that I have now, even though I look like a normal refugee, there is a big difference. There is a big difference and a big journey that I have traveled through. So yeah, the workflow gave me the idea how to complete the book, and then I also changed the name. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. In the mid, I used a proverb in the book, which is one of the Afghan proverbs in Persian language, which says, Qatra Qatra Darya Mesha. Drop by drop, a river is made. And I realized, what if I removed the other name, the Odyssey of American Dreams, because that also looked like a cliche, and changed to something new. And then I kept the name A River is Made Drop by Drop, because whenever I felt less or weak or, Stephanie, hi, sorry, not being able to complete a task because of many, many reasons, either because of my age, or maybe I couldn't complete a task because of the requirements of the things that I needed to complete the task, or education, or environment, or wars, or being a refugee in a country where I didn't felt welcome, or refugees felt welcome. And my father would repeat this proverb, that Qatra Qatra Darya Mesha. And I realized if it's care for someone or love, little by little it becomes healing. And I saw that in my own life with my own kid and our journey. And whether if that's stress, unresolved, little by little it becomes a trauma, like we have seen especially in the refugee community. I'm not saying there is no stress in broader communities, but with the refugees, there are a few things that are very important that they don't know. The lack of information, as Gabor Mate says in his book, When the Body Says No, the lack of information is a contribution to the stress that is unresolved, and it becomes a trauma. It turns into a trauma. So refugee communities, they don't know what to do. Their refugee status, they don't know what their status are. They don't know the language. They don't know the process. They don't know the broader policy behind it. And then if we talk about success, or achievements, it doesn't come at once. We don't become a millionaire just from having $100 today and the next day we are millionaires. Or any achievement we can talk about, any educational or being a good author, I would say, it doesn't come at once. You need to work for it. You need to struggle in a lot of ways. You need to be patient, and you need to learn from the process. And little by little, it becomes an achievement. And that's why then I turned the whole name into the book. Drop by drop, a river is made. No matter whatever you do, whatever the human situation is, little by little, it becomes something different when it grows. So yeah, that was the name of the book. I want to talk about a few more things about the cover of the book. Probably you cannot zoom with your natural eyes, but this is kind of, when I requested for a book cover, Stephanie, we have some place, if you could please. We have some snacks and chai. Thank you. The book cover, when I was given the choices to choose one of the designs for the book, there were plenty of them, but I told them, no, I want something that describes hope. I want something that describes future, or something like from one life to another life. And then they sent me 9 or 10 more designs. But still, it didn't describe how I felt about the initial design. And then they sent me this one, which I really liked. This is, if I explain it, it will be more like an attraction. The life before the door is the life that I have I had in my childhood, or every other Afghan had in their life. I mean, it's not only me. This story is about millions of Afghans. They can mirror themselves in this book. So they sent me this design, but there were no bullets here. These are the bullets marks in the wall. And there was also another thing, Haelia, which is the Statue of Liberty. It's very hidden or very non-visible because that was my purpose of something that is very far dream. We cannot see it very quickly, but if you focus, there is a Statue of Liberty. And I don't know on which page it was where I talk about the Statue of Liberty, but let me find it. And I have read it like maybe 100 times. I hate it, but yeah. Then they put the bullets, which is in my former life, before the door opens. And then after the door, there is greenery, there is hope, the sun lights, sun is there, and also the Statue of Liberty is one of the freedom thing. And I think that's very important. And as I said earlier, like one of the most important things that people who live in this country is the natural things that God has blessed this country with. When I was watching the series, the Viking series, one of them, I don't know the name, if you guys can remind me. Floki is the character who comes to the United States first. It was before the Columbus thing. So when he comes to this country, that series, he comes back to the Viking, those people, and he said there is a country like God's country, something like this. And when the other guys follow and then come to the United States, they see like it's a very different country. You can grow things there. It's vegetables, fruit, and a lot of things at that time. And it might seem very natural and normal to you, like it doesn't make any difference. But when I remember my youth or my childhood, probably at 9 or 8 or 10, something like that, my father was a farmer, and we used to grow tomatoes in fields of the local people where we were refugees with 50-50 financial benefits. It was a great struggle to find water for irrigation, for the farming. We had difficulties with lights, we had difficulties with generators, we had difficulties with the fuel for providing for the generators. And if I compare that thing with, the greeneries here, I said to my friends, like, God has made a very differentiation between us and these white people. Because God has given everything to them. So what I mean is, like, you guys are blessed. Be thankful for this country, and I am grateful to be here. I'm so blessed and be happy to be here, and I have brought my kids here. So yeah, this was one of the things that describes my life and the life here in the United States and the blessings you have in this picture. I was kind of trying to look for So as we embarked on this journey, coming to Des Moines, or the United States, I often thought of a famous words inscribed on a plaque inside the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, taken from the poem "The New Colossus." Colossus, yeah. Sorry for my English, that's my fifth language. By Emma Lazarus. It's on page 174. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Send these homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. We have come here, that's very true, and because the situation was made like this. But actually, America loves such people who are tossed like me. These words have long stood as powerful symbol of America's history as a nation of immigrants, a promise of safety, freedom, and opportunity for those seeking refuge. As our plane crossed the ocean, I couldn't help but wonder about the golden door. For many, it is a gateway to new beginnings, but stepping through it is not the end of the journey. It marks the start of another path, one filled with challenges, adjustment, and unseen struggles. And that's also true. Sorry, this book is a combination of politics, personal burdens, and so many things. But I really hope you will enjoy it. Barb, I need your help to kind of read this, and we will stop at some point. But yeah, this is the what is the heading of it? The beginning in the future. It doesn't make sense, but it's something. The story starts. How I think about writing a book, or imagining, forcing my imagination to think about the whole story, and this is where it starts. Please, it's chapter 3.
Okay, a beginning in the future. In 2022. Des Moines, our new home, felt like a sanctuary after months of chaos and uncertainty. It was a sunny day. The warmth of the sun embraced the open park, and the laughter of children danced through the air. My kids were playing, their smiles wide and unburdened, running through the grass as though they had no cares in the world. Their carefree joy was a balm for my weary soul, filling me with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in what seemed like forever, I could breathe deeply, assured of one thing, that my kids were safe. Got more?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. I lay back on soft grass, feeling its cold touch beneath me. The sun's golden rays kissed my face, and my cap shielded my eyes just enough to let me enjoy the brightness. For a moment, I let myself drift, closing my eyes and soaking in the gentle rust of leaves in the breeze, the distant hum of traffic, and the happy shouts of children. In this rare moment of serenity, the noise of the world faded, leaving only the rhythm of life's simpler joys. I thought to myself, is this what heaven feels like?
Please.
Okay. My thoughts were interrupted by Hasina. Hasina has got the most charming smile. She just melts your heart.
Thank you.
And she is the second daughter. So by Hasina, my third born, whose tiny voice carried the excitement of discovery. She sat nearby on the grass, busy arranging colorful shapes she had picked up from her toy set. Square, circle, triangle, she murmured, her little fingers moving with focus. Then, as if a light bulb flickered on her curious mind, she paused and looked up at the sky. The sun, earth, round, flat, raised, she said in her new language, English, testing each word as though tasting its meaning. I watched her with quiet pride, marveling at her determination to make sense of this new world. Her fingers crawled closer to where I lay, and soon they reached my feet. She stopped, her small hand resting on my toes as her brows furrowed in curiosity. Oh, we're going on. Okay. I can't begin to say those words.
Flarjana.
Thank you. Dear Father, it's the translation. Why are your toenails different from each other?
It's one of my toenails, right?
Yeah. Her innocent question tugged me out of my thoughts. I tilted my head to look at her. Her tiny face was filled with genuine concern, her eyes wide as she waited for an answer. For a moment, I hesitated, unsure how to respond. Her question about my toenails opened a window to the scars of my past. Her curiosity was so pure, so untouched by the weight of the world. I knew I had to read carefully, balancing the truth and her innocence.
Please. One more paragraph.
Okay. Oh, I said, sitting up slightly and letting out a chuckle. When I was a boy, I wasn't careful. I was running too fast and not looking where I was going. I hit an iron rod and it cut my nail. That's why it looks like this now. I tapped my foot lightly, giving her a small smile. That's why I always tell you to watch your steps and be careful of what's ahead.
Thank you, Barb. There are a lot of learnings about kids here in this book, but also a difference between how kids or children or even teenagers in other countries live and how ungrateful kids could be here for the life. I'm not saying they're ungrateful, but I wish they understood or could see the difference in some ways. So yeah, this was the situation where my imaginations about the book awakened. So it was, I believe, September 9 of 2001. And this is a city where I walk in daily, and I take lunch to my brother's shops every day. And then there is a huge crowd of people hitting a donkey. And on the donkey, they have written Ahmad Shah Massoud. On the one side is like just Ahmad, and the other side Shah Massoud. I didn't know who Ahmad Shah Massoud was, but it was one of the greatest mujahid, or a person who defended Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion after the Soviet invasion of 1979. So he was, as you may be aware, if aware of the tragedy that happened on September 9, when two of the journalists came, two individuals, or terrorists, I would say, came in disguise of being two journalists for, I believe, Al Jazeera, and he was giving an interview, and in the camera, actually it was a bomb, and it was a suicide mission, and they unfortunately killed him. So this was the scene when people where I lived enjoyed hitting a donkey and the name of Ahmad Shah Massoud written on it. For me, I was more wondering, because that's how I was growing, and I was taught that written God's name on anything else that could be, disrespected, maybe the earth or leaves or anything that you can throw, or especially an animal, it's not considered blessed or very clean or neat, and we respect that we should not write God's name on things like this. But not only they had written the name of God on a donkey, but also hitting a donkey, which is very cruel and something that doesn't have voice for themselves. So basically the situation was that Ahmad Shah Massoud was considered one of the infidels, I would say, in that area. And they were celebrating his death because they felt they're more Muslim than Ahmad Shah Massoud was. But how could you be a Muslim of that kind when you disrespect God's name and also hit a donkey? So yeah, this is where I hit my toe with a rod, and then eventually the shape of my toenail became different. Thank you, Bart, for helping me with that. Fast track, I would go now. This was 2001, but I will now come to 2021. It's like 2 decades after. And this is where our unit was surrounded in mountains by the Taliban, even though we had made an agreement that they will provide a safe passage to Kabul International Airport, which was like 5 hours drive away from where I worked. And the section name is The Trap. A few months earlier, I had trained on the basics of an AK-47 and a pistol for self-defense, open, fix, and fire. I had even flown by helicopters to the border control points with my American supervisors, but that was not a battlefield. I had never expected to see one. My work was with computers and words, translating documents or interpreting between individuals. I had never picked up a gun with the intent to fight. It's on 162nd page. You can see the figures of figure 9 and 8 and 9 at the end, but it's just me holding a gun or with a gun. But on this night, the choice was simple: live or die. We were to leave in the evening. Though we had been promised safe passage, no one truly believed it. Back home, now my father knew where and what was my job. So I worked with the U.S. Or with CIA for almost 3 years, but I had not let anyone know what my work was unless my wife and my previous boss, because I had to convince my boss that I am going somewhere better. Sorry, Samantha was my former boss. That's why I'm pointing there. So they were constantly waiting to hear from me. For the last 5 days, I had been lying to them, offering vague reassurances to shield them from the truth. Up to this point, we had never told our families, which I mean my colleagues, what was truly happening at the base. Now there was no more hiding. With the Taliban in control, the cellular networks had become unreliable, the signal flickering in and out of existence. We had been preparing since morning. My phone battery was low and there was no time to charge it. I called my father first, quickly explaining the situation and asking for his prayers. Then I sent a WhatsApp message to my wife. In case I don't make it to Kabul, or if anything else happens to me, I may not be able to talk to you again soon. But if I can't for a few days, it will mean that I'm living no longer. In that case, you are allowed to remarry. The marriage should not be forced or matter of culture. It should be your own decision. My children need someone's care, and tell everyone that I was not afraid of death, and if I have to die, I will die with honor, not by turning my back on my comrades. So the marriage thing is, unfortunately, Islam is a very good religion, very peaceful in many ways and very beautiful in many situations. But we as people from different countries and cultures, we have messed it up. And the rest of the world thinks like we are using Islam, but that's culture and that's very different from the religion. And that's why I was telling my wife to remarry in case if something happens to me, because in our culture it is very difficult for a wife or for a woman to make that kind of decision unless she had a proof of me telling her something. My colleagues and I gathered for a final check. We adjusted our chest rigs, slapped the magazines into our AK-47 and chambered around. We said our last prayers and headed out. In the luxury Toyota Land Cruiser I shared with friends from National Directorate of Security, which is the Afghanistan's CIA, I would say, with a heavy silence fell. It was an emotional moment. Yes, I cried, my friends cried, and we were either going to die or live. It was Sunday, August 15, 7:25 p.m. As the gates of Chapman, this is a place where we worked, opened, a crowd stood waiting outside. It was a mix of Taliban fighters, local people, and children, all eager to loot the base and pick up whatever they could as soon as we were gone. It was a moment our commander had anticipated, one that could have decided the fate of host city, and had we left without an orderly departure. A massive convoy of more than 1,000 military trucks, armored vehicles, and civilians' cars began to roll onto the town roads, joined by medical team and their ambulance. Inside the ambulance was a soldier who had been critically wounded just days earlier. He was a part of the small support team sent to help the OSF from Paktika province reach Kabul Gardes highway safely. Though the OSF had made it through, KPF, which is our unit, small support team was ambushed on their way back to our unit. They had fought for hours, suffering casualties before reinforcement could arrive. The soldier in the ambulance was one of those survivors of the attack. So this is few days earlier, someone had been injured in that ambush. But the night we are leaving, which is like few days after, we still have that wounded person in the ambulance. This road ahead could either lead to Kabul or to our graves. As we traveled through the city, the crowd's reaction was a painful mix of love and anger. Children and elders offered prayers for our safety. Some shouted, "We will miss you." And men ran up to vehicles to embrace their loved ones who were leaving KPF and host forever. But others cried with rage, and some even spitting toward us, shouting, "Cowards, you are leaving us." The KPF was a force of hosty men. They were brave, people of their Pashtunwali, and men of honor. They were the kind of soldiers Afghanistan had needed for 20 years. They were well equipped, well armed, and well trained. Actually, the KPF I'm talking was one of the CIA base, and these individuals are all trained by one of the top U.S. military force, we can say. They were not employed by the Afghan government, they were employed by the United States State Department. The only thing missing on that journey was air support. Perhaps it was there, but we simply were not told. But had the men known that drones or air cover watched from above, their morale would have soared. With that assurance, I believe no one would have spoken of surrender or negotiations. So, Barb, can you please help me in your English read from here?
Right there, the second.
Yes,
paragraph.
please.
Okay. Is this going to make me cry?
I believe so.
Oh. Okay. We left the city behind and entered the mountains. Is that where you wanted?
Yes, please.
Okay. It was quiet, and black darkness was all around us, broken only by the headlights of our convoy navigating the curved, steep roads. We received warnings from sympathizers along the way, telling us that we were walking into a trap, but the decision had been made. There was no turning back, as Camp Chapman was no longer our fortress. Our commander was a hot-headed man, and he was prepared to fight to the last breath if circumstances required it. We had been traveling for about 2 hours when the front of our long convoy ground to a halt as the Taliban checkpoint. Our military personnel went forward to negotiate, reminding them that we had been promised safe passage by their governor. The response was chilling. The orders to stop us, they said, had come from their same governor. Words were exchanged. Then gunshots cracked through the night. Our vehicle was near the middle of the convoy. We didn't know who had fired or why, but bad news travels fast. The word came back down the line that we were being prevented from moving forward. In the exchange of fire, one Taliban, what would that be? It's not Taliban, so Talib?
Yes, Talib is like singular for Taliban.
Had been killed in their checkpoint. The commander gave the order to turn back towards, what is that, like?
Coast.
Coast?
City,
Okay.
you can call it city.
City. The plan was to either capture the airport and wait for an airlift or fight our way back into our base. But after traveling only a short distance, our convoy stopped again. Another Taliban checkpoint had materialized behind us, blocking our retreat. We were trapped.
Both ways, yeah. So front and back both are blocked. I'm just explaining.
Okay.
Sorry.
Continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. Three civilians from our convoy were sent forward to tell them we had negotiated with the Taliban governor and were returning to Khost.
City.
Okay. As soon as the lead negotiator opened his mouth to speak, he was shot in the mouth, his body collapsing on the road. The two men with him sustained injuries. Another volley of gunfire erupted, but this time no one else was hit. This standoff continued for hours with periodic exchanges of fire and moving forward and backward. Yes. Keep going.
Yes.
We were blocked on both ends of the highway in the mountains near, how do you say that?
Anarbagh.
Yeah.
So Anarbagh is like, it's a name, but Anarbagh is like garden of pomegranates. Roughly 28 miles from Host City. The road was a narrow ledge carved from the side of mountain, a sheer drop of 50 meters to the valley below. To our other side was the mountains like a wall of solid rock. There was no way forward, no way back, no way out. We were not outnumbered in manpower and arms, but our position was a death trap. The Taliban held a well-fortified hilltop across the valley. It was perfectly laid trap, one they had clearly been preparing for days. See figure 10. Everyone prepared for what was to come. Our men poured out of their vehicles, finding whatever cover they could. Chants of Allahu Akbar roared from our side, a declaration of defiance. Gunfire erupted from our convoy. Our men fired toward the sparks of enemy muzzles, flashes coming from positions across the valley. And sorry, this part may be probably 10 p.m. Yes, 10 p.m. And it's dark. After an hour of tense silence, a few vehicles carrying local elders approached from the city to negotiate with our commander. They urged to wait until morning. The Taliban governor was sleeping, and the decision would not be made until he had performed his morning prayers. It is an emotional chapter afterwards. It's getting more and more heavier, but I believe I will stop talking because it has been a long time that I'm talking about this thing. If you guys have any questions or anything for me, I would be honored to answer. Or I can just summarize the book. So the story actually starts from 1955 or somewhere, where Afghanistan used to be a peaceful country, a very good country. Economy was not very strong, but people were happy. because of the simplicity of life and the happiness that they receive from it. But since Afghanistan had relationships with all of the great nations like the UK, Britain, an empire it was, and the United States and also the Soviet Union at that time. But because of the geographical need in the region, Afghanistan and the politics of that region at that time heavily leaned toward the Soviet Union for infrastructures like roads, dams, schools, or even technical education or such things. But the only thing was that communism, even it's not considered well now, and it's very different in contrast with religious people, and Afghanistan obviously is a religious country. People used to think, or it was a reality at that time, that if kids go to Soviet-influenced schools of that time, though the school was free, then those kids will come back not as kids. In my perspective, like I will talk about my grandfather in my family, my grandfather thought if my father goes to school, he was 9 at that time, he will return not as a son but as a communist. So what my grandfather did is to dress my father to look old. So the officials who are selecting kids of a specific age from 7 to 9 would say, like, this guy has grown up. He's not for the school. So that's how they did, and they played this role and had my father not go to school. My grandfather, he gave his shoes to my father and stuffed it with the fabric so it can fit my father's small feet, and then also gave his vest worn over my father's small body so he can look a bigger person, and also worn his torn turban over my father's head so the sags would be falling down and he would completely seem not like a child. What also my grandfather did is to bribe the elder of the village to tell the officials, when they call my father's name, he will tell the officials, like, this guy is grown up. He's not for the school age, and that's what happened. That's how the hopes and dreams of education for my father were shattered because of the Cold War propaganda between the United States and the Soviet, or a reality. But when the 1979 Soviet invasion happened, my family migrated in 1983 to Pakistan, the neighboring country, and to be refugees. At that time, I was not born. And they lived in refugee camps for the first 8 years, going from one area to another, chasing dreams of warm weathers so my father can farm and also can do the labor work. But when it was winter and chilly, he would just do the labor work, and for that he had to go to another warmer place in winter. So that's how they navigated the refugee life, like for continuous 2 decades almost. And then I was born in 1993 in a refugee camp where there was so many limitations about education. And not only that, Pakistan is a country where you don't have the birthright citizenship. And when I was trying to get my higher education, I was not allowed to give those exams because the requirement was for me to prove that my parents were citizen or I was citizen. But that was impossible. So who suffers? I do. I was dreaming of education in a different life. But not only that, there were so many limitations for Afghan refugees in Pakistan because of the political environment. Anytime something happened between India and Pakistan, which is two political rivals, Afghans had to suffer. They would either blame refugees were being spying for India or whatever happened, they would put it on Afghan refugees. And the same was between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Anything happened between these two countries politically, the people or the refugees living in Pakistan would suffer. I would put it as an example, like, let's say a family that has moved a war or fled a war in Mexico to the United States, and that family gives a birth to a child in the United States, and that child is not given the rights of being a citizen or the rights of pursuing higher education in the United States. And whenever something happens between which countries good relationship with Mexico and let's say Venezuela. Venezuela is not politically good with the United States, but good with Mexico. So anything that happened between the United States and Venezuela, that family would suffer here in the United States because they're Mexican. This is how life for Afghan refugees was and is, even right now in Pakistan. But that didn't stop me from pursuing my dreams. I learned English from going to 1 hour, 2 hours courses, to learning from Hollywood movies, to learning from old English newspapers, or to learn from GTA. It's a game. It's a game. In 2003, I used to play that, and that's why the character name is CJ, Carl Johnson. And when I started working with the U.S. Special Operatives, they were looking for a call sign or a name that we use in military perspective. And my friend who had referred me there, he named me as CJ. And it was like decades different between that name I was called and then applied to me. So yes, I learned from very many things, English, and then that English led me to work in Dubai for 7 years. And then my child with special needs was born, which is also part of the book. And then I started working with the U.S. military and then came here. So yeah, basically there are a lot of things in the book. I'm sorry for that, but you will enjoy it. Yeah.
Do you still have family in Pakistan or?
No, while I was working in Dubai, it was very difficult for me to get back to my country because I used to navigate the border complexities between these two countries, and it was overwhelming. It was a lot of struggle to come from Dubai to Kabul and then go through Ghazni and Angurada, which is the borderline, and then go home back to Pakistan, like where we lived. And whatever I had brought with me, like perfumes, soaps, and different gifts for people, the time when I went home, there would be very less left with me because I had to bribe every checkpoint in this. This is not in the book, but it was a reality. I mean, if I wanted to talk about everything, it would have been a 5-volume book. Yes, that was a good question. But then we moved to Afghanistan probably between 2013 and 14. And I just traveled tour one time to Pakistan, which was very difficult for me. And then I told my father, I can't be there anymore. You guys have to move. And they did. Yes, sir.
Fazal, I've just started the book in chapter 6, but it's your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that struck me, I mean, I lived a childhood where I woke up every morning and I didn't have fears and anxieties and so forth. And it seemed that you had those things, and you also said something to the extent you didn't feel that you really belonged.
Yes.
Because of
Yes.
the moving around and being seen as a refugee
Yes.
and so forth. And I guess what I'm wondering is, have you been able to, or at what point in your life did you get over that where you felt you belonged, or
That's a
have you gotten over
very good
that,
question.
and do you
So-
today feel like you belong?
Living in Pakistan was a very different experience that couldn't be enhanced livelihood-wise. That was a situation for like 4 decades. Like if you're hearing in news, Afghans are being deported right now because of the political situation. So it's still the same. I wouldn't be talking about that life in Pakistan. But when I moved to Afghanistan, while I was making my national ID cards there, because that was a requirement to call yourself being an Afghan, I saw the political system that was very much crippled by extortion and bribes. And, when CIA created all these warlords and things, it didn't help Afghanistan. And I openly say this because it's not coming from my experiences. It's in the book. It's a pretty much reality. It had crippled Afghanistan. Every small service that was supposed to be provided by servicemen to public, it was so hard to get that service. For example, I was making my Tazkira, which is the national ID card, and it should have cost me like 500 Afghanis, which is the currency of Afghanistan, but it cost me 7,000 Afghanis. From going here to there and to, delaying my time and putting me into a different situation so I could give more money. And at some point they asked me to bring office supplies for them, like staplers or glues and all those things. I was wondering like where the international aid goes. And it was like the capital of Afghanistan. That you still ask me to bring those things. Where does these things go? The trillion of dollars that were coming to Afghanistan. At that point, I also didn't belong to be in a country that I could say my own country. And it was my country. It was Afghanistan. But it was everywhere like this. Not only that office. I have my friends, they might have their experience of their own life. But the system was making you feel that you don't belong. But when I came here, I talk about CIA, I don't care. Because I felt I belong here. When we landed in, earlier I talked to you about Des Moines. On the 12th of February, 2021, we were told that we are going to Dearborn, Michigan, and Detroit city is nearby, like I think it's 28 miles from Dearborn. And I started my research how Dearborn looks like. And I saw like the big mosque, I think it's one of the biggest Muslim community mosques, and it's one of the biggest Middle Eastern Muslim community. And I downloaded pictures from the internet and I sent it over to my father so he feels better that I'm going somewhere where there is still some part of Islam and community, and I would not be the only Muslim person living in the United States. I sent it over to him, and he was happy about it because he saw the mosque and community and pictures of halal stores and so on. But on the 16th, it happened on the 10th because on the 12th we were supposed to have our flight. On the 12th, when I was at the flight orientation, I was told that my flight was canceled because of some reasons. And I believe it was my child with special needs. And we were going somewhere else, and I didn't know what it is. But on the 16th, the night we were going to come to Des Moines, I was given those papers and tickets and all those things. And it was from Philadelphia to Detroit and then to DSM. I could understand Philadelphia, PHL, I think the International Airport acronym. And then I could understood the Detroit because I had already did my research a few days ago, but I didn't know what DSM is. And when I did my research, there was nothing like DSM but DSM Airport. When I put that on Google, it turned out to be, I would say Des Moines, but yes, Des Moines International Airport. And I shared this information with our doctor who was looking after our child. And she was equally frustrated because she didn't want us to end up somewhere for weeks and probably months because of the overwhelmed refugee resettlement process at that time. And she was worried. Like she said, I don't want you to be somewhere where your child is out of medicine and you won't get medicine until there is a process for it. I didn't know that. But in 1 or 2 hours, we had to figure this out. And when we figured out that it was really the place we are going to, we are on the plane on the 16th, and I was worried, and the nurse who was accompanying us asked me about my experience about being in the United States, and I said, I feel very good, but now I don't feel good because I don't know where I'm headed to. And this person tells me that if he was given the choice between Detroit and Des Moines, he would choose Des Moines. And I couldn't even at that time catch he saying Des Moines instead of Des Moines. And I was like, okay. When he was saying like, why I would choose Des Moines is because Iowa is very popular for a phrase, Iowa nice. And okay, I was still like, okay. And when we landed in at the airport, there was our caseworker from United States Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, which is one of the nonprofits here in Des Moines, Iowa. A caseworker and also some church members from Heartland Presbyterian Church in Clive. And they were holding banners written in our language, in Pashto, and hugging us, and very white people, like retired people. I was like, oh my God, we are blessed, like we are being hugged by white people. And they came and hugged and smiled and exchanged our greetings and so on. And I felt overwhelmed and I was happy. I started talking about Des Moines, Ahmad, brother. And I was like, oh, this is very nice that we are in Des Moines. I didn't expect this because I was like going somewhere I don't know and so on. It's, someone taps me on my shoulder like, son, the first thing you need to learn here, it is not Des Moines. It is Des Moines. And yeah, that was my first day, and since I'm so happy that I couldn't have prayed for something better than Des Moines and then Iowa. So thank you for being Iowa nice. Yeah. Thank you.
Before you stop there, can you tell the story about Basmina with the suitcases? And then also, I've often wondered about your flight over here with having a toddler, special needs, and 2 little girls. How did you guys do that? When we came to UAE, Abu Dhabi from Afghanistan on the 24th of August, and on the 26th, unfortunately, the tragedy happened that killed around 170 Afghans and 13 CIA servicemen or US servicemen. And that was the gate that I went through like maybe 10 or 15 times a day on the 24th or on the 23rd, because I was a person receiving our unit members and their families. So yes, I avoided that tragedy, but when we came to UAE, we were restricted by the COVID restrictions, and we couldn't go out of just like a place like this, and you wouldn't be one room with 6 individuals. And Salman, my son, he had a habit of not being able to stay in one closed place like for half hour. And he used to cry and throw things around, and so many emotions that he would use, and we cried with him like maybe hundreds of times, we as parents, because there was no other way to calm him down, because he didn't understand it. But every time we went through official process, first thing I had to make sure that they understand our need. And they were quite flexible with us. Yeah. So yes, on the flight they managed, understood our needs.
at the refugee process in Dubai, UAE, sorry, Abu Dhabi. They understood our process. And I think what I'm saying is that my mom, she died in 2011, and she used to say that a family is blessed in many hidden ways that we don't see or understand because of one person. That family is blessed. And I didn't realize that unless she was gone, because there were so many things happening in our family after her death. And it was similar with Salman, that I couldn't realize how blessed we were with a child of special needs. He had a magic of opening doors for us during this journey. And some of my colleagues stayed in Abu Dhabi camp for like more than 1.5 years. But we were transferred to the United States in 96 days, like 3 months. And I think that was also a blessing of Salman, his needs. And yeah, so he was a blessing, and he made everything easier for us. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, we're going to have to, because we close at 8,
Okay.
and I think we could all listen forever. But we do want to have some time for him
Okay,
to sign
thank you.
books.
Thank you so
So
much.
thanks
Yeah.
for coming, and give me just a minute. We'll move the chairs, and you can sign books and.